Morning guys, it's about 6 a.m. Got a few things we're going to work on today with Rusty. Let me show you what's going on. So come to find out that I do have enough parts to work with to get the snowcat built, get Rusty built. However, some of them have to be fixed, modified, and whatnot. So both Rob and I decided that it just wasn't worth it sending one of his guys up here to swap some of these parts out. So the snowcat community has reached out to me to deal with the axle length difference on the rear differential, and we'll get into that here more in a little bit. But today I think I want to take the axles and let's see if we can get the bends out of the axles that have some bends in them and get them straightened up. I got a couple tools I can use that I'm hoping will work, and we'll see if we can get those taken out of there. We may have to apply some heat or whatever to get that done, but that's fine. The other thing is, some of you guys are saying, you know, a few posts back or a few videos back, why don't you just build one from scratch? Well, that's basically what I'm doing, but the key component that most people don't realize that's very important is these rear differentials that are set up for snowcats specifically. So this morning, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by doing like a little look and learn. I'm going to take the lid off the bucket there and show you guys the internals of OC12 rear differential for snowcats. It's a pretty common rear differential. Show you the inner workings and what happens when you use this type of a differential versus a car differential. So I think we'll get started with that. Give me a few minutes here. We'll get the garage rearranged so that I can have better access to some of the stuff that we're going to be working on today, and show you what we got. Okay, I'm going to try to explain this to you guys the best I can from the research I've done. I may not be 100% correct, but I'll probably give you a good idea of how these systems work on these snowcats. So there you have the internal workings. Let me see if I can get this set up better so you guys can see this. Get a light on it there. So there you see we've got the internal workings of the snowcat. So these right here are the steering bands. So what happens is you have two levers in the cab that you pull on, and it locks up one side of the differential versus the other. The one thing that vehicle differentials do not have is, you see down here on the inside and the center of the differential, there's a bunch of different gears. So what happens when you lock up the steering bands is this side will stop and this side will speed up. So those little gears in there actually increase the rotational speed of the track on the other side. Most people don't realize that. This particular unit has about 400 hours on it. It looks pretty much brand new. However, the main failure point on a lot of these is actually the ring right here. So they'll chunk out before they actually break and you're dead in the water. But that's a failure point on these. They do have a guy that I've been talking with on the phone who's helping me out with this and explaining all this stuff to me, that manufactures those rings, and they're hardened so that they're not such a failure point. They're about $900. Not a big deal. They do exist if something like that happens. Now, on the outside of the differential here, there are these, they call them drop boxes. And so, to my understanding, what these drop boxes do is they take a internal final drive of 5.89, I believe is what it is, but I'm not 100% certain, so don't fill up the comments with all of the corrections. And it creates a little bit more torque, so you end up with like 6.2 or 6.1 coming out here, going into the axles, which are over there. So a couple of options have come up now that I was unaware of. The one option, which is pretty obvious, and I've got a guy in Alaska that's supposedly going to get these standard size axles that come out and will just bolt straight in to the drop boxes and to my frame. The other option is you remove the drop boxes 100%, and there's an axle that comes directly out of the differential without the drop boxes and all this extra weight, and there's no reduction. So let's say, for instance, your snowcat travels at a top speed of 12 miles per hour. If you remove these drop boxes, you'll now travel at 6 miles per hour more top speed, so 18 miles per hour. So you gain a little bit of top speed, but you're exchanging it for the low end, and you're also risking the ring blowing itself to smithereens. Can that happen on a little, Cummins powered 4BT unmodified motor? Yeah, but it's not common. Where they commonly fail is when people put a snowplow on the front and a groomer on the back, and they're hauling 10,000 pounds of gear in the snowcat, which is what it wasn't designed for, and you're going up an incline, and then all of a sudden things start making noises in the back. We won't be doing that with this cat. This cat will be myself and probably 3 other people or 4 other people at the most, going up, enjoying some Forest Service roads that don't have super steep inclines, and just driving around and having fun with it. If I can get this thing to go 10 miles per hour, I'm going to be happy. I'm not a speed freak. I don't want to Ken block the thing until it's blown apart. That's something I don't want to do. I don't want to get into driving in, 20-foot snow drifts and stuff like that. So this thing won't be under an extreme amount of stress. The one thing I do need to do, though, is source the... If you look at the front here, I'm going to come up with a way to eliminate that lever design, if I can, by taking some slave cylinders that actually pull on these brake bands rather than push, because the normal setup is like this. You've got these up top, and then you have a slave cylinder that pushes on these to actuate the brakes. But I'm going to try and eliminate that system. I know guys have done it before. I just have to do a little bit more research. So that's kind of the inner workings of the rear differential and why they're so specific to snowcats. I hope you learned something just as I did. And let's move forward with trying to fix these silly axles that are bent. All right. So I got one of the intermediate axles straightened out here. That Harbor Freight 12-ton $60 with a 25% off coupon actually worked great for straightening the axles. So let me show you what I'm up against here, and this is a tremendous amount of work, but we're going to do it. So I got all of the standard size axles straightened out. One of them was straight already, so I didn't have to do anything to it. And one of them was the first one I tried. I was able to get the bend out of it. But check out the wide frame axles. So the intermediate right here has a bend in it, but it doesn't matter because I have to cut 9 1/4 inches out of the center section and then weld them together to match the standard axles. Same thing with the front axle. The front axle is actually straight. There's no problems with it. It's a heavy duty axle because it takes a lot of abuse. But the front axle actually mounts to these square tubes, and those square tubes slide into the frame right here and here, and then there's tensioning bolts. This is to tension the track. I have to weld those on. We took these off of another thickle that he had down there, so I have to clean these up and weld those on, and that provides tension. There's a plate on the axle here, you see. So those bolts press up against those little plates and slides that axle forward or backward to take the tension, or release tension or add tension to the tracks, basically. So my plans for this guy, I'm working with John, and I think he's going to come up with a straight out axle solution to get rid of the drop boxes. That'll get rid of about 100 pounds of nonsense. If we go that route, that's going to be great. I already retapped all the holes up here. One of them had a bolt that was snapped off. I cleaned that up. We're going to use some grade 8 hardware. Actually, this whole build is going to have grade 8 hardware everywhere on it. So any nut or bolt that can be replaced will be replaced with grade 8 hardware. This frame obviously has to be wire wheeled all the way down to bare metal, and same thing with the axles. And then I've got some of my favorite paint here. We got clean metal primer. I like using that stuff. And then my favorite of all times is this flat black stuff. It's oil-based. It freaking lasts forever. We've been using it on Able for everything. And it holds up really well. Let's see. So these tracks. These are 32-inch tracks. And obviously the belting will have to be replaced. I found a really cool hack for that. I'll share that with you guys when we get to the point where we're rebuilding these tracks, which is going to take frickin' forever. A lot of the wear pads on these look good. Some of them are missing, so I'm going to have to buy some stainless and redo the wear pads. You notice how there's like a 6-inch wear pad on here. What this is designed for is so that if you're on pavement or a gravel road or whatever, it's less stress on the rear differential if it has less contact to be able to turn the snowcat. So that's I think this is a 3rd revision that they made of these tracks, which was the final, and it worked out the best. But as you'll see, there's, you know, each one of these grousers I'm gonna have to go through and clean them up. I might have to weld some patches into them. All the hardware will have to be replaced. And you see here you've got, this is an icebreaker grouser, that's what I call it. And every 7th one, if you go along here, has one of those icebreakers on it. So, what else? I think that's probably going to be it for this episode, guys. If you like this episode, give me a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed yet, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. I'm going to guess that this build series is going to go over 100 episodes, just like Abel's did. And we're still not done with Able, so. But other than that, guys, take care, and I'll catch you next time. See you later. Bye-bye.